Okay, today I'll do another bad work story. Bad jobs, bad boss. I work for a company where basically I had to be at work at 8 in the morning. And this company was very weird about how if you start at 8, you clock in at 8. You're not allowed to clock in before 8. You're not allowed to get any extra time or overtime or anything like that, which is fine. So a lot of times I would get to work early because I'm one of those people that always likes to be on time. So usually 5 minutes early for me is what I like to do to just make sure I'm there on time. Of course, I knew I couldn't clock in until 8 o'clock. So where the time clock was in this like kitchen break room. And so I got to work and it was probably like 5 minutes before 8. So I knew it was too early to clock in. So then I sat down and I just sat in a chair waiting for it to be 8 o'clock so I could clock in. Well, the owner came in, sees me sitting there in the chair, and goes immediately to my manager and was like, I don't pay people to sit on their fat, I can't say the word, fat butt, starts with an A. I don't pay people to sit on their fat butts beyond the time clock, sit on their fat butts in the kitchen, eating their food, stuffing their face. First of all, I didn't really enjoy being called fat, but also I wasn't stuffing my face. I was sitting in a chair. I wasn't getting paid because it wasn't on the clock yet. They assumed that, or he assumed I must have just came and clocked in and then started eating in the kitchen, which I didn't do. I was waiting to clock in. So of course he went off screaming at my boss. My boss comes over to me and was like, what are you doing here in the kitchen? And I'm like, I'm waiting for it to be 8 o'clock so I can clock in. By this time it was 8 o'clock, so I'm like ready to clock in. And I mean, I thought I was gonna get fired because they were like, you can't just come here and like eat breakfast and be on the clock. It's like, I wasn't eating breakfast, I wasn't on the clock. I got here early, which now I learned was my mistake. I should have just sat in my car and waited for 8 o'clock to clock in. Instead, I sat in the break room. My bad. So that was kind of like a clue to me that was a bad job, but it got worse from there. But that was one of the things that happened where, like I said, I didn't really like how that incident went down. I also felt like no one was listening to me to explain my side, to say that I wasn't even on the clock yet. I was waiting for 8 o'clock to clock in. Another part of my job role there was we would have these monthly luncheons, and I was the one in charge of planning out the luncheon, schedule the catering and everything. And so I planned out one of the luncheons, called the caterers, ordered enough food for everyone that was in the company. It was like a medium-sized company, not a large company. But basically I am the one who put the whole thing together, right? So then what happens is when you have one of these company luncheons, buffet style, where the food's all set up on a table and then people kind of like go through the line, you get your plate and you go through the line and you get your food. Well, since I'm kind of in charge of things, I like to make sure everyone has eaten first before me, to make sure there's been enough food for everybody before I go through the line. So I waited for kind of like everyone to come in because not everyone would come in the room at the same time. So I was like kind of like last few people trickling in. And so finally everybody got their food and ate, or was eating. And so then I felt like, okay, well now I'll see what's left of the food and I'll get my plate and I'll eat. Same guy, same owner of the company, flipped out, wigged out, said no one's allowed to have seconds. Like, this is like my first. I'm not having seconds. He claimed that taking seconds or having seconds, a second helping, was considered stealing from the company, which it's like, okay, but I haven't even eaten yet. I was like waiting till everyone else got their food first. Once again, like, I had no way to really explain myself, being yelled at, being cut off before I could even explain myself. Also, I thought it was weird that if there's any food left over, that somehow someone taking seconds, if they're really that hungry, it's considered stealing from the company. But okay, so basically I haven't even eaten lunch yet. I'm trying to get my first helping. But yeah, he just told me I wasn't allowed to eat anymore, that, that you only get to go through the line once. And it's just like, okay. So then I like put the food back because now I'm not even allowed to eat the food. And once again, he goes to my boss and starts yelling about like, I'm not gonna have that fat chick eating all our food. And I don't know why this person had a problem with me, who kept calling me fat. Like, I weighed a lot less than I do now when I worked at that job. So it's kind of really funny to me to be called fat. But I just thought, like, once again, I thought they're gonna fire me. But also in my mind, I was thinking, F this job, I'm gonna quit this job. Like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe there was an incident where this other person, like, we all had our individual desks, but this other person in the office had gotten a plate of like grapes and cheese and crackers, and she was sitting there eating at her desk. She asked me if I'd like some, and I was like, okay. I grabbed like maybe like a grape and some cheese. Once again, this seemed to be the exact time that the owner comes in and sees me nibbling on some cheese and a grape that wasn't even mine. I didn't even bring the food in. This other lady did. This other lady had it all spread out on her desk. Sees me eating and starts yelling about how because of me, the office is gonna get rats or rodents or something, because, we're gonna get infested with bugs because I'm the one bringing in all this food to work, which wasn't my food. Yes, I was eating, but they said that now there's going to be a new company policy that no one is allowed to eat at their desk at work, which I guess was blamed on me, even though really it was the other lady, but okay. Yes, like I said, I was eating, but because of me, they were going to start this whole new policy that no one's allowed to have any snacks at their desk at work. And I would say that was probably the final straw. Like, that probably happened in the middle of the week, and then that weekend, I had in my mind that I'm not even going to go back to week the following Monday. Like, F this. I mean, I wasn't even really like going to give them notice or anything. I was just going to walk off the job. I knew there were certain things at my job that I was responsible for, that I needed to complete, that I wasn't gonna like really screw anyone over in that regard. But I felt like I am not gonna go back to that job. I am not gonna put myself through that ever again. Like, this is ridiculous. Never going back there. It was degrading to be constantly yelled at, and like really like yelled at. Not a stern talking to, but like screaming yelled at, being called fat, being accused of like stealing all this food. It was not a good job. Bad bosses.